In the darkest night, we find our light. Battered souls, but we won't lose sight. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, we stand tall. United forever. Strength and courage will overcome. Oh, surviving together, victorious, never, never alone. Hand in hand, we'll face the unknown.
We see you, we hear you, and we believe you. Hey, everyone. How you doing on this Saturday afternoon in September? Oh my gosh, it is September 20th already. It is blowing my mind. Welcome to Surviving Together. Glad you have found us. We are a safe space for trauma survivors to connect and build community on their healing journey, as well as providing trauma-related education for all. If you haven't already, if you hit that like button before you leave, that would be greatly appreciated, or the dislike if, you've got something that you didn't like about it. And subscribe if you haven't. Hit that bell all for notifications. You're going to have to do that. Otherwise, it just goes to personalize. Trying to remember to say that for people. As you may notice or not, I don't have my new camera yet. Amazon is going to have a big sale, so it's different than their Prime days. It the 9th, I think, of October. So usually electronics are one of the prime things that they have on sale. I need new wireless earbuds and I want to get a new camera. So I'm going to wait for that sale for it. I have set the money aside. Somebody donated money specifically for a camera. So I've got that money set aside and we're going to get that at the beginning of October. So it will be coming. Yeah, exactly. Apparently, the algorithm doesn't care whether you've got dislikes or likes, just as long as you have them clicking. We are averaging about a third of the people who watch the videos are actually hitting that button. So, want to try and increase that, as well as comments after the show. The comment section, the more comments that are made, the more the algorithm is going to push the video out to people and put it in their faces, to get the word out for everybody. Let's see who we have here so far. We've got Crystal and Deaudrey, Patty. Good to see all of you. Joe Della is joining us. Thank you, thank you. I hope you are all having a great afternoon. I did see a message, and Deaudrey said she's been dealing with some perimenopause. I want to encourage you to go to it is the second to last community post that I did. And it is a series, it's a 4-part series. I've only done one so far, I believe, by my doctor, actually, my specialist doctor. She's absolutely amazing. And it is a series on menopause. So I highly encourage you to check that out. And I haven't checked out all of her content, so she may have some other things in there that you find interesting as well. But she's absolutely fabulous, so knowledgeable, and really explains things in a way that makes sense. Because our bodies, starting in perimenopause for females, just, go haywire, right? I take hormone therapy if it's a little patch, a little sticky patch, and I change it every 3 to 4 days. But I'll tell you, I notice a difference if I wear it too long and I don't change it on time. Like I normally don't remember dreams, but when when I wake up, like, one morning and, like, I've had this funky dream and I remember it right away, I'm like, "How many days has it been since I changed my patch?" And normally, I haven't changed my patch. So, just some information for you. Okay, yeah, great. I just encourage you to do it. Crystal, I did get your message. I haven't had a chance to respond back to you, but thank you for the information that you sent. It's very much appreciated. Haywire, right? Yeah, absolutely. Our bodies go bananas. The other thing that I want to mention before we get started on today's topic, and I'm going to put it up here if I can find it. Did I? Oh, there it is. Okay, so these are the three ways that I have that you can donate to Surviving Together. There's PayPal, Cash App, and the actual GoFundMe site. The GoFundMe site was started and is dedicated to my book launch. So I will be taking that down the beginning of November since it won't be needed anymore. And we'll just have the PayPal and Cash App. We are down to the last $500 that I need to raise in order to pay for the hotel. I I've been amazed at the outpouring of support. Thank you, everybody. If you've already donated or if you can't donate, if you could please share these links out. You can also copy and paste information from my community posts about the book launch. So it gives some context as to why I'm asking for money. That is the best way that you can support me right now is kind of getting the information out to people beyond our immediate circle. Because most people who have the ability to donate, already have donated who are within our immediate circle. So just looking to get the word out even more. So if you can do that, I agree. Greatly appreciate it, especially if you have Facebook or Instagram or some other form of social media beyond YouTube, because I don't. So that really helps me in getting the word out. So I'm going to take that down now, and I am going to put up our trigger warning today because we're going to be talking about disclosure of your trauma, particularly reasons why people don't disclose. And we've talked about this in general, but I wanted to go a little bit more in depth with it. And then to also talk about, can you heal even if you don't disclose your trauma to other people? And if so, how? So, I am talking about disclosure of trauma, and this can be any form of trauma, whether it's sexual assault, domestic violence, emotional abuse or neglect, physical abuse or neglect, um, you know, bullying, financial, any other form of trauma that you can think of. Our big T's like war or being involved in a natural disaster or a near death experience. I am talking about disclosure in terms of official channels, which would be law enforcement, or unofficially, which means disclosing to anybody else, whether that's a friend or a therapist or a family member. Why don't people disclose? Well, there are a lot of reasons why people may choose not to disclose. And part of this is where they may be in life in terms of development. Are they a child or are they an adult? Now, what I'm going to go through is applicable to both, but I think that we can all agree that there's just an extra layer with kids, an additional fear factor because they don't have the experience of the world of sometimes even knowing that things are wrong. So, one reason that people may not disclose is they don't recognize that they're being traumatized. They don't see their experiences as abuse. Now, this could be particularly with kids, like I said, because they don't know any better. They don't have a context for it. Or it can be, say an adult with financial abuse or domestic violence. If somebody is, say they have a narcissistic partner who has been progressively isolating them and gaslighting them, the evolution of that traumatic experience can be so slow that they don't even recognize it within themselves that this is abuse. So that could be one reason. But what about when you do know that you're being traumatized, that you're being abused? Why would you choose not to disclose? Well, one of the biggest ones is fear of not being believed or simply being dismissed. And we see this all the time with kids, particularly if there's family involved, um, but it's a mom or a dad, and they don't want to believe that their partner is capable of this. Um, it can also be in adult relationships where the abuser has done such a good job of putting on a face to others that people are like, there's no way. Mark's not like that. Can't believe that you're saying that he's like this behind closed doors. He's given us no red flags. We have no reason to think that this would be the case with him. Hey Doran, how you doing? Glad you've joined us this afternoon. So that's one reason why somebody may choose not to disclose. Another reason related is lack of support, lack of someone who they trust. If you don't have that, they may not know who to go to. And it can be very intimidating to try to go to a stranger and reveal something that is so personal. So if you don't have a support system, if you don't have trustworthy people around you, it can make it very difficult for people to be willing to come forward and disclose to somebody. Additionally, there can be safety concerns. And I'm talking about, in general, physical safety concerns. They may be fearful of retaliation if their partner finds out or if the abuser finds out that they're going to be physically harmed. And this can be because of that's been part of the relationship. Think of domestic violence situations, or think of an environment where you've been physically abused as a child. It can also be because the abuser has made threats. If you ever tell anybody, I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to harm somebody close to you. It doesn't even need to be yourself. And it doesn't actually even need to be another person that the threats are made about, especially with kids. Um, it is very common that abusers can identify pets. You know, we often talk about having pets as an emotional support in lieu of having people that we connect with and that we have for emotional support. That may be the one thing that they feel safe with, that they have support from. And to threaten to harm that or to take it away can be extremely, um, what's the word I'm looking for? See, this is part of my perimenopause. I think I'm starting to lose my words. Effective can be very effective, and so somebody may choose not to disclose because of a fear of retaliation of some form. Simply the stigma as being labeled a victim of particularly sexual assault. We see this all the time, but it can be with other forms of abuse, especially when people are like, say a domestic violence situation or an emotionally abusive relationship, when you're living with a narcissist. Why didn't you just get out? Why didn't you just leave? And so the stigma of being labeled, being seen as someone who has been a victim of a particular type of trauma can make people very wary of wanting to disclose. Speaking of retaliation, Crystal says, or they tell you that next time it'll be worse, that it's your fault that this happened. Absolutely. I 100% agree. Yeah. They Abusers can be extremely manipulative. Yes, they can be. I think they all are. It's one of the ways that they ensure your silence, during your trauma. And this, a lot of this goes to, when I speak about that, you have an abuser. So, not a wartime situation or a near death experience where it's a car accident or you've been part of a natural disaster or something like that. But even so, I mean, particularly with war for soldiers, and it's getting better. They the military is recognizing that mental people's mental health suffers during wartime. But it's an old time traditional establishment, and there are still those within the military that are going to be of the opinion that you if you admit that you have an issue, a mental issue, that you're weak, which is so not true. But this can also be for outside of the military, um, cultural norms, say, within a family, there's just an expectation. You've grown up being discouraged about airing your dirty laundry or about just talking about feelings in general, or if you're feeling anything other than strong, it makes you weak. And I know a lot of people grew up in households like that. Fear of damaging the relationship. This is a huge one where you are in some form of a relationship, and this doesn't not need to be romantic, obviously, relationship with the abuser. You don't want to damage your marriage, your partnership, your family. A lot of times where there is abuse within a family, whether it's immediate family or extended family, The child will be warned. If you tell, you may be taken away. Uh, the abuser may go to jail. You're going to rip the family apart. And these are people that we rely on for our survival, right? They feed us, they house us. Hopefully somebody within there loves us. And to then be the one responsible for breaking that apart, that can be a huge incentive not to disclose. Emotional avoidance is another one. Whether this is because talking just feels so overwhelming that you wouldn't know where to start because you're in freeze mode whenever you think about it. It's just, even the thought about doing it is just too overwhelming. Um, People can be numb or disassociated from their feelings. So they're going to avoid looking at that's their coping mechanism for avoiding being connected to their emotions. Sorry, guys, I'm just going down my list, making sure that I haven't missed anything in regards to what I wanted to talk about with the emotional avoidance. Another thing is when you have a relationship with somebody where there is a power dynamic, whether that is family, whether that is because the abuser is a religious figure or somebody is the financial provider within the relationship, that is a huge reason not to disclose because of that inequity in power. And this can relate to some of these other reasons, like who would believe me if I said the priest is abusing me? If I disclose that my soccer coach is abusing me, then I don't get to play soccer anymore, which I love to do. It's one of the few things that makes me happy. So you may be accepting of the abuse that comes along with it because you don't want to rock the boat. And again, that goes to just destroying relationships. Practical reasons. Like I just said, with financial, somebody may be the financial provider, whether this is you're in a relationship where it's your parent, and so you're reliant obviously on them to buy your clothes and your food and house you, or you're in a romantic relationship and somebody is the breadwinner. How do I get out of a domestic violence situation when I have no income myself? I've been the stay-at-home parent. I've got a gap in my resume of 15 years. Or I have a job, but I make minimum wage and I want to take my three kids with me. So there can be a lot of practical reasons, related to finances as to why somebody is not going to disclose their abuse. For officially disclosing your abuse, there are a lot of people who are fearful of the legal process, whether they're immigrants and they're just fearful of talking to the police in general, or you know that if you get involved, if you disclose, then there's going to be an investigation, and if the person's arrested, I'm going to have to testify in public in a courtroom and say this to everybody, and it's going to be part of a public record. That can be very intimidating for people and can be a reason as to why somebody would totally keep this to themselves. Judge, you said someone disclosed on my behalf because I was only 4. So I have no idea if or when I would have disclosed. I'm forever grateful to that person. That is wonderful. And I'm assuming by you saying you're grateful that it worked out. Um, for some people it does. For some people it doesn't end up, where we want it to be. But whether or not we should disclose on behalf of somebody else is actually I could make an entire other show about that. So I'm really happy for you that it worked out for you. Another practical reason why somebody might not disclose is fear of professional repercussions. Again, there's a stigma involved with this. And what if the person who is your abuser is part of your workplace? Or what if you're fearful because coming forth with whatever your trauma is, you're going to be labeled as having mental issues, which dealing with trauma, we have mental issues. Now, they don't have to be debilitating. A lot of us, we can still work, but that fear of a stain upon us can keep people from disclosing. Hi, Shell. How are you doing today? Glad you joined us. As I spoke in the beginning, some people don't disclose because they don't know that they're being abused. But one of the coping mechanisms of abuse, of trauma, is that we can downplay it. So, minimization, where we're saying it's not that bad. Our coping mechanism is keeping us from realizing the full extent of our trauma. And so that can keep people from disclosing simply because of how our body, how our mind is protecting us from the trauma that we are undergoing. Lastly, you can have unprocessed or unprocessed memories. And this can be repressed memories where you have no recollection of it. So you can't disclose what you don't consciously know. But it can also be because you have fragmented memories. And so, as I've spoken with my first memory of trauma, I have very pockmarked memories. And I don't remember the actual abuse itself. I just have feelings and I have memories around it. But if I were to try and disclose that, I wouldn't be able to tell somebody exactly what happened because I don't consciously know. And again, our brain is protecting us by doing that. When our emotional when our nervous system gets overwhelmed because of trauma, it shuts down those parts of our brain that are related to memory and spatial reasoning, spatial processing. And so we may not remember exactly what happened or in what order things have happened. And you may eventually remember things as you start along your healing journey, but sometimes people never do. So that can be another huge reason why people don't disclose. Now, what can disclosure do for you? Disclosing to somebody can make that trauma real in a way that when we don't actually express the trauma, we have all these feelings inside. And especially if you have fragmented memories, it's almost like you can say, well, it happened. I think it's easier to dismiss, it's easier to downplay. But when you have to verbalize it or even write it down, it makes it real in a concrete way because you are putting words to what you're feeling and to what you remember. And so disclosure can give us a base of our trauma. It maps out the scope of our trauma, at least to the degree that we know it at that particular point in time. And this can be the scope of the experience, the actual things that happened, but it can also be disclosing how you feel. And that can give you a map of what you need to work on. What are my issues? What am I feeling? And so the next part of this becomes, can you heal if you don't disclose? Personally, my answer is yes, with a caveat. I believe that you can heal if you don't disclose to another person. However, I think that it is going to be very difficult to move along your healing journey if you don't disclose to yourself. You need to understand where you're at in order to heal. So, if you are at a point where you've never talked about this to somebody else, and whether or not you've started your healing journey, I really encourage you to define your experience, define your emotions and what you feel about all of it, whether it's verbally in a video diary or talking to the wall or whether it's journaling. I highly encourage people when they're first starting out with this, when they haven't spoken about it, to journal about it, to write about it. You can think of it as a journal, you can think of it as, just getting what you've thought out on paper, whether it's a journal that you intend to keep. But I think it is really hard to work on ourselves when we don't understand or have a clear picture as to our starting point. So, yes, it is possible to heal even if you don't disclose to another person. Ah! But you need to disclose to yourself. Now, if you've chosen in your life not to disclose to another person, How do you begin your healing journey? Crystal says, I think it's much easier to heal if you disclose to someone else. That way, it's no longer a secret. I agree that there is power in telling somebody else because you are taking you are taking control over that narrative. And when you disclose to somebody else, you don't have to tell somebody every single nitty-gritty detail of it. It can be simply, I was abused as a child, physically, sexually, emotionally, or yeah, I got out of a domestic violence relationship, or I'm in one, and this is what I'm dealing with. I think some people have this idea of disclosure being they have to tell somebody everything that happened. And that's not the case. Obviously, if you're going to go through the legal process, you are going to have to go through that as much as you possibly can, as much as you possibly can remember. You're going to have to try and disclose in order to have the best um, opportunity for prosecution to be successful. But if we're talking about disclosing to your therapist or disclosing to a friend or a trusted family member, in terms of making that connection, to have somebody there for you for support, simply disclosing, I was the victim of X trauma is sufficient. I wanted to highlight somebody else. Oh, Crystal was talking about dealing with it in the workplace. There's you face not being believed or being made to feel like it's not a big deal, being dismissed. Yeah, and it can be difficult for people who don't understand the details, who don't have the context to believe you. And that's why I say, our first step in supporting survivors is believing them. That doesn't mean you need to do anything else with that information other than be supportive of that person. If you subsequently learn details and there's problems with it, then you can put pieces together and decide for yourself whether or not you actually believe that this happened. But the likelihood of somebody disclosing falsely is very small. They're the things we hear about the most, especially if it's involving um, somebody famous, sports figures. We had the Duke lacrosse trial where the victim subsequently recanted and gave her reasons as to why. There's some, the news sensationalizes that. And so I think people have this, I don't want to say an innate fear, but a skepticalness. People are skeptical. That their first thought is to not wholly believe somebody. And I think that's one of the things that we really need to change. That most survivors overwhelming majority of survivors who disclose are being truthful. And to come at it from that angle, wow, how many people would feel so much better? How many survivors would feel so much better and supportive if they knew that somebody's first reaction is going to be, I believe you, versus I need details, tell me why. So, again, I mean, it's one of those things you got to talk about it. We have to educate people in order to change society, and we're better than we were, but we've still got a ways to go in regards to the initial reaction being, yes, I believe you. And I think that overall, I see, with kids, particularly the push to believe them first has improved. If anybody remembers the McMartin trial in the 80s, that was, I think, a turning point to begin speaking about this. It was also the McMartin trial, for those of you who don't know, they ran a daycare center out of their home, and they were accused of abusing kids. And it was one, then it was two, then it was five, then it was 20 of them. And forensic psychologists, um, forensic interviews in terms of interviewing trauma survivors, there weren't protocols at that point. And so those subsequently grew out of that era. And with that in mind, people began speaking about abuse more, about child abuse, about where it can occur, about how it can occur, and about believing in the child, but that certain safeguards need to be put in place when you were speaking about something uh, with the legal process in terms of getting everybody involved. And the police learned a lot. The whole legal system learned a lot because of that trial. And I recently have not done any um, investigation into that. I know people are still kind of on one side or another. Were they railroaded? Were they not? I did see a headline maybe a few months ago, highlighting it and saying, these are the red flags that go to show that there may have been a kernel of truth, or that there was some truth to some of the allegations, but it did snowball and it got out of hand. So that the creator didn't think that they were guilty of all of the charges for all of the kids, but that they were guilty for some of the charges in regards to some of the kids. Yes, I'm still having to drink through a straw. My lip is still swollen. As you can see, I still have this right here. But the face is healing. My nose is still pretty bruised, but other than that, we're doing much better than we were. Okay, so getting into the next part of this, how do you heal if you don't disclose to another person? Well, like I said, starting off journaling, I think that it is important to know where you're beginning. How do you know to move forward? How do you know what to try? How do you know what you need to work on if you haven't identified the problem, if you haven't mapped out or scoped the issue. So I think that journaling, especially in the beginning of your healing journey, is extremely important for at least identifying what you're dealing with, the effects of the trauma that you have. And so what you're trying to work on. So self-guided work in the healing process is very possible and can be very powerful. So after you've really identified kind of what you can, I'd say education is the first thing that I would go to. Educate yourself on what trauma is. How does trauma affect you? Look at the trauma effects that you have. Research what those trauma effects are and why they're there. When we understand the how and the why, it becomes a lot easier than to decide, how am I going to tackle this problem? And so there are so many sources on YouTube. There's self-help books out there. There's organizations that have workbooks that you can get a hold of to help you if you're having trouble with your journaling and kind of getting everything out, or not sure that you've really addressed everything. There are sources out there that can help you work through your issue. I know that Mel Robbins puts out one. There's a therapist on YouTube, Therapy in a Nutshell. She's got a workbook out as well. I'm not sure about the holistic psychologist, if she's got a workbook out there. I know she's got a support group. Um, but educate yourself. Find find as much information as you possibly can. Once you've identified the issues that you need to work on, then you can look at, okay, how do I tackle this? How do I try to recover from this? And these are things that we have spoken about in the past, such as Soma, which is body-based therapies. And this can be things like doing breath work. There are tons of different ways to breathe, to regulate our emotions, and calm our nervous system. Yoga is extremely effective. Any movement, whether it's dancing or walking or just simply getting up and shaking yourself, shaking your limbs, shaking your body, any movement is helpful. We know that exercise in general releases dopamine and endorphins, that stuff that makes us feel good. And really, quick movements, particularly in when you're feeling that anxiety or you're feeling your emotions unregulated, quick movements like dancing or running really fast for a short distance, or like I said, shaking your entire body out, uh, can be a quick way to bring your emotions back into line. Meditation can be extremely effective, and actually I need to get in touch with Jimena, and I want to do a whole meditation show with her, and looking at various meditation practices and how to do it, and talk to her in depth about, why it works so well. Tons of different guided meditations. If you don't know how to meditate yourself, if you're very new to it, tons of guided meditations on YouTube um, that I know can be extremely helpful. And Jimena's got different uh, on her Magic of Healing uh, website or YouTube. She's got a bunch of different guided meditations as well, and you can check those out. Practicing mindfulness, which just means practicing being in the present, not thinking about all the things that you have to do tomorrow, not dwelling on everything that you have to do in the past, but really being present in today and being able to get through everything that you need to do. It helps with focus. It can help with sleep in the long run because you're not constantly having all of these thoughts of past and future rolling around in your head. And it brings a sense of peace and wellness when we're able to truly enjoy our present day. Different creative therapies such as art, music, dance, creative writing. I'm also going to include in this animal therapy, can all be ways of processing emotions, whether you're getting that out through painting about your feelings, or just because painting is a calming exercise for you. Animal therapy, a lot of people have found extremely effective, and there's cats, dogs, horses. Those are kind of your main three that people um, that are out there for people to actually do with somebody. And when I say therapy, and I mean this is more than just having a pet, because these are people, therapists, who are trauma informed therapists who are using the animals as a way to help you process your emotions, connect back with yourself. It can be extremely effective for those survivors who feel distance from their emotions, who are numb or have disassociated from their trauma, to connect back with themselves and to work through their feelings. Having a support system. So even if you don't disclose, places like this can be really helpful in just making you feel connected to a larger whole and feeling like you're not alone. And often we found that people who have come, who have been lurkers, who have watched on replay or have just watched the live but not been part of the chat, eventually become part of the chat. And just because you're part of the chat does not mean that you have to still disclose. You can soak up the information. You can be involved with people. You can make connections, but they don't have to know exactly what you've been through. Just being a part of this community, having this safe space just to be without judgment, without pressure. If you don't feel that you have any other support system available, or even if you have another support system available, having people who have been through it, who, some people on here haven't been through trauma themselves, but they're trauma supporters. That connectedness, it helps us, draws us out of that isolation, which is a space that a lot of us retreat into for safety because we know that, that's okay. It's, if you just have to rely on yourself, you know what you need to do, who you are, and just being by yourself and keeping the world at bay, that's safety. But it's also not helpful for healing. We're human beings, and human beings crave connection. And so, whether it's this space or a group therapy that you find, or some other uh, trauma group or other YouTube site, if you find it that has space for you just to be able to connect with other people, can be another helpful healing mechanism. The last thing I think I'll um, talk about with this is in terms of if you don't disclose to somebody else, how do you heal? Is really taking an inventory of your life in terms of your sleep, in terms of your nutrition, what do you feed your body, in terms of your self care. Are you caring for yourself? Do you take time for just yourself? Or are you always worried about somebody else? Are you showering? Are you dressing? Are you doing the basics? What is your stress level? Who are your safe relationships? What's your daily structure like? So, taking an inventory of everything that is going on in your current situation is another baseline, another way of saying, okay, what do I need to work on? Do I have gaps here? Am I getting enough sleep? If not, why is that? And then let's look at how do you address that? Are you feeding yourself properly? Are you taking care of yourself? And when you take this type of inventory, I do really encourage you to write it down because it can be easy to forget what we need to work on. It can become overwhelming. And so we have it listed, you know, you're not going to address everything at the same time. That's too much. That's overwhelming. But look at your life. What is going well? What's not going well? What are the areas that you need to work on in terms of our basic survival? What's your daily stress level like? Where are your sources of stress? Pick your top one. Work on that. Are there any other categories where you can make a minor change? Like we said, healing is not linear. You're not going to get there tomorrow. It's not a sprint. Healing is a journey, and there's no one particular destination. Those of us who have suffered trauma, we have lots of things that we need to work on. Trauma doesn't just affect you in one particular way. So healing is not a destination. It's not like we get through one thing and think, okay, I'm fixed. Even when we've dealt with things, we can still be triggered later on. It's how we deal with that trigger. Does it incapacitate us? Does it put us down does it dysregulate our system for an extended period of time? Or are we able to deal with it fairly quickly in a mannered way and keep moving on with our life? Hey, Lindsay, how are you? Welcome. Glad you found Surviving Together. Sorry, I was going through all of that and I had it on a different sheet, so I wasn't looking at the chat. The Elizabeth Morgan story. Huh. No, I haven't heard about that. I did listen to a story today about somebody who was abused throughout their childhood and eventually went to the police, actually left the home at night in the middle of the night, went to the particular deputy's house or sheriff's, whoever, and they believed them. But the mother, unfortunately, decided to support the father or the stepfather, I can't remember which one it was, and said, "You're not welcome home." And they reached out to other family, and the family said, "We don't want to get involved in any of that drama." And so here you have this child who did the bravest thing they possibly could in coming forward and disclosing and ends up in the foster system. It was heartbreaking. And these are things that happen. And these are the fears that are so legitimate that people have as to why they don't disclose abuse, even if they know it's wrong. So I encourage everyone out there, if somebody comes to you and discloses abuse, don't judge them. If they are disclosing abuse that happened in the past, there are a myriad of reasons as to why somebody may choose not to disclose. It doesn't make their story or their experience any more invalid because they delayed disclosure. Ah, just trying to highlight it. Lindsay said, I recently heard Gabor Mate, which, oh my gosh, wonderful, wonderful doctor who is an incredibly well known and spoken trauma advocate, say that trauma didn't start with the event, it started before and is illuminated, like lack of support. He is absolutely phenomenal. He's got a ton of videos out. He's written so many different books. I have another stink bug walking across my ceiling. Sorry, guys. I absolutely hate stink bugs. They're big and they smell if they're disturbed. And I don't know why they are at my office window. It's the only window at my house that they live in. But when it's warm, they make themselves at home inside. I've taken 5 of them out of my house today already. And it is like the one bug my son won't touch. He will deal with just about anything else other than bees because he's allergic, but he was like, "Don't bother my spiders. They're eating the mosquitoes in my room." If mosquitoes happen to get inside. I'm like, "Oh, sorry. I'll leave them alone in your room, but, if they crawl up here, they're gone. I'm sorry, I can't do it." Hey, Misha, how are you? It's just the only way to make things different is by standing up and making our difference ourselves. And that is why I said that in addressing the question, can you heal without disclosing? My answer is yes, if you're talking about disclosing to another human being. Personally, I don't believe it's possible if we don't disclose to ourselves. We can't fix what we don't understand. And so we need to know who we are, where we where we stand, identify your experience. And in doing so, it doesn't mean that you have to re-explore all the nitty-gritty of every instance of abuse because that can be very triggering. But it does mean recognizing that the abuse occurred and scoping out what effects it's had to you. Lindsay, I'm so glad that you found us, and I'm glad that you're a part of our community. If you're interested in, we've been on what, about 20 months now? 21 months? Oh my gosh, I'm so amazed. January is going to be, well, beginning of February would be 2 years. It feels like it was just yesterday that I was doing the year anniversary, so that this year has just absolutely flown by. So glad that you're here as part of us, and you can check out any of our other videos here. Most of my things are live, so you'll have to click on the live section. Misha says, I've really been struggling with that, owning my truth, so I can finally take it off my shoulders and moving forward. It's such a hard process, but thankfully I'm not alone anymore. Absolutely, you are not alone. And I think that's a great way to put it. And it was a word I was searching for earlier. When we talk about it, whether it's through journaling or talking to your pet or to the wall, we make it real and we own it. This is what happened to me. You define it, but it does not define who you are or who you can be. But it's something that happened to us, just like all of the other experiences in our lives. Some are just harder to deal with than others. And so, again, yeah, that's why support can be so critical for people in feeling that they're not alone in their experience. Everyone here is at a different point in their journey. And so you can find people who are where you're at if you're at the beginning of your journey. You can talk to people who have been on their journey for years, who have made tremendous progress. There's some of us who have been doing this for a long time and we feel like we've made some progress, but still have ways to go. And again, it's because healing isn't linear. We may take a half step forward and 4 steps back, and then 5 steps forward and 2 steps back. It's all okay. It's all okay. You are a survivor if you've been through trauma because you're on this side of it. So you are stronger than you know. You lived through it and you came out the other side. You're not broken. You just have trauma effects. that you need to deal with. And so, if any of you out there are struggling with this, don't know where to start, please become a part of this community. Connect with other people. I would be so glad to get my camera so I can set it up on my big monitor so I don't do that again. I have to pull my laptop close enough and I end up hitting it because I talk with my hands. I don't know how people don't talk with their hands. Misha, I have not seen your most recent song. I will have to go check it out. Did see a couple of shorts that I thought were apropos, were on point for what a lot of us experience. And it's by a person, a YouTube creator called the Holistic Psychologist. And I'll put her link in the video description. She doesn't do lives, but she does a ton of different videos. She's a doctor, an actual psychologist. She's got a ton of different videos about trauma and healing, but she's also got a lot of shorts that just talk about it. Some are serious, some are ways to help regulate your emotions, calm your nervous system. But other ones are like these two that I pulled that are just funny, and you're going to go, oh my God, that's me. The first one that I want to play for y'all is called People with Complex Trauma Were Honest. So let me present this to you guys, 'cause I think it's absolutely hilarious. Okay, I don't think I can make it any bigger, but here we go.
Sorry I'm late. I tried to get in the shower for 3 hours and just ended up scrolling on my phone thinking about how I should be in the shower. Sorry, wait, what were we talking about? I just left my body. Sorry I keep asking if you're upset with me or ignoring me. I grew up walking on eggshells, managing my parents' emotions, so I'm doing the same thing here. Sorry I didn't text you back. I spent the entire night overanalyzing our relationship, and I convinced myself that you were using me in some way, so I decided to ghost you. Sorry I'm late. I tried to get in the shower for
Uh, I I could totally relate to everything she said with that, especially the first one. I'm sorry I'm late. I tried to get in the shower for 3 hours and I ended up scrolling on my phone thinking about how I should be in the shower. Oh, she absolutely kills me. All right. So the next one is called Hypervigilance Sounds Like This. So let me share this one. Thank you for sharing your song link, Misha. I'll definitely check it out. See if you can relate to this one.
Hey, are you mad at me right now? No, why would I be mad? You were talking earlier, but now you're quiet. I don't know, did something happen? No, I'm just on my phone. Just because I'm quiet doesn't mean I'm mad at you. I sent Jen a text and she didn't get back to me about Saturday. Do you think she's mad at me? Why would she be mad at you? I don't know. Why wouldn't she text me back? When did you text her? A few hours ago. She's probably just working or busy. I'm sure she'll get back to you. I feel like the last time we hung out, she was just different. Okay, well, did something happen? No, nothing happened. I just have a feeling. Okay, well, if she's upset, I'm sure she'll say something. I wouldn't stress out about it. Okay, she just texted me back. There's such a weird vibe at work right now. What's going on? Everyone stopped talking when I walked in the other day. Okay, well, were they acting weird or anything? Oh, they were all nice and said hi, but it's like, why did you stop talking right when I walked in the room? I'm sure I did something wrong. That could have been anything. Maybe the conversation was just private, or they didn't know who was going to walk in. I wouldn't read that much into it. I just know something's up. Hey, are you mad at me right now? No, why would I be mad?
Okay, so that was the other one. Misha, you've heard of her before? She's got a ton of videos like this. You know, she had other ones on, fight or flight. Um, I think she had flight or freeze, what functional freeze looks like, and if a person who has an avoidant attachment issue, if they were honest, what they were actually thinking. Ton of shorts like that. So if you feel you need some connection and we're not live, if you haven't connected with anybody here yet, check out some of her shorts. I think you will definitely find at least one or two of them that will really speak to you and be like, okay, well, if somebody's talking about this, there's obviously another person in the world who's gone through this, who feels this. So just yeah, I did light mode exactly, Misha. Just trying to end on a little bit of a humor side since we delved into something pretty serious today. So with that, we're a little after about quarter after 4. So I hope that you guys have gotten something out of this today. I know our chat numbers have been down, but I think that a lot of it has been from summer. We are getting a lot of people on replay, so it just may be timing. But if there is anything that you want to talk about or that you want to hear me talk about that you think is an interesting subject, please drop it in the comments or email me, survivingtogether, sass@gmail.com. I would be very intrigued to hear from you. I wanted to put so there's my email. I'll put that up. Take our trigger warning down because I'm here for you. I save this space for you, and I want to address things that are meaningful to you. Um, I think that there is huge value in having people in the chat and having people be able to connect with one another. Whether you're connecting, I don't have a problem if people chat about something other than the topic that I'm talking about. I know some creators have a problem with that and say, don't talk about squirrels when I'm talking about trauma. But if that's your way of connecting with somebody else and you're getting to know somebody, I do not have a problem at all with that. So I wanted to put that out there. Again, guys, if you could hit that like button on your way out, if you haven't already. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. Otherwise, it stays on personalized. Then you'll make sure to get notification for our lives, which are Wednesday at 6 p.m., which will be our next one, and every Saturday at 3 p.m. I think the only time that I'm not going to have a live is Wednesday, November 5th, and that is because I will be traveling in Vancouver. We're 6 weeks out from the book launch, guys. Wow. I can't believe it. I'm giddy. I'm so excited. I dumbfounded still. Um, and it's just absolutely amazing. Misha says she's going to be on Echo's channel tonight, and her channel is the Kaleidoscope of Happiness. Misha, if you want to drop that link in the chat, feel free. I think she is on at 6 o'clock Eastern, if I'm not mistaken. And I think most of you guys know, so Women Changing the World is the organization that is behind publishing this book. They are the organization that I won the award for the Global Awards in April, and I have been nominated many times for the Women Changing the World Americas Awards. So it's the Americas region, North America, Central America, and South America. And so I'm very honored that I have been nominated for that. Our applications are due in 8 days, so I gotta get my butt in gear in doing that. And finalists will be announced October 6th. So cross your fingers. We'll see. Maybe I'll be part of finalists. If I am, the finalists will be the actual awards winners will be announced at the summit that the book launch is part of. So I'll be there. So we'll see. Who knows? If not, I'm just honored that there were, so many people who thought enough of what I'm doing here to actually go and nominate me. So thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, there is the link to the live for Echo. I think she's on at 6 p.m. Eastern. So Misha will be on with Echo. You can check her out tonight. All right, guys, that's all I've got for today. I will see you again Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And until then, please remember you are worthy, you are valuable, and you are loved just the way you are for who you are. So, hugs and love from me. Mwah. Have a great weekend. Surviving together, never alone. Enjoy the outro, guys.
Through the fire, through the rain, we have walked through endless pain, but we stand, we rise again, stronger now, we break the chain, surviving together, hearts open wide, lifting each other through every tide. The past may have shaped us, but it won't define. Together we heal, together we shine. Every tear, every scar tells the story of who we are. Not just survivors, but warriors too. With love as our armor, we see this through. We see you, we hear you, and we believe in you. Surviving together, hearts open wide, lifting each other through every tide. The past may have shaped us, but it won't define. Together we heal, together we shine. We see you, we hear